Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of the MilVet Podcast. I'm your host, Beau Higgins, and I have the pleasure and privilege to be joined by Jake Wilmes today. We'll get into what Jake's doing now and how he got to what he's doing now. But for those that maybe don't know about the MilVet is an organization that provides a service, basically an executive pathway for veterans that are interested in getting into the private equity and venture capital world. It's something that I know a lot of veterans are interested in. So if you are, please check out themilvet.org, listen to our podcasts, come to some of our events, just learn more about what we do. We'd love to talk to you and tell you more about what we do and share information about how you may be able to be a fit in the private equity and venture capital world. But today we have the pleasure to have Jake with us, and we'd love to kind of give us a little story. What are you doing these days? Jake, tell us about what's going on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Beau. I've been looking forward to this for a while now. My name's Jake. I've been working in software for about 5 years, kind of as a data scientist, machine learning engineer. I'm currently working on more of the business side of things, but I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Higher Calling. We can get into it later, but it's basically a piece of software that allows employers to make a donation to a nonprofit of choice of a job seeker when they apply for jobs.
That's pretty sweet. And I love that. And I know that you do have obviously a veteran background. And I'd love to kind of back up from how you got to Higher Calling and what you're doing in the machine learning space, which seems to be quite a leap from being a Marine. As a Marine, I feel like I can say that. Marines aren't known as being the smartest. And as an Intel guy in the Marine Corps, I got that a lot of times. Like, oh, Marine Intel, I get it. Where are the crayons? So we heard that a lot, I know. But what for you was the initial calling before your higher calling? What was your initial calling to get into the Marine Corps?
Yeah, so I have a family history of military service. Both grandparents, both my grandpas were vets. My dad's dad was a World War II vet. He was a twin 50 gunner on the bottom of a B-17, shot down over Italy, had to E&E to Hungary. And, just his experiences, my other grandpa's experiences in the Army, two uncles that served. So, we had a lot of military heritage there. So it always was kind of in the back of my mind. In high school, I was kind of your typical class clown, didn't really take school very seriously, got into trouble, all that stuff. And, 9/11 had happened when I was in 8th grade. And I just kind of was like, oh, wow, this is not good. And I think I need to, I just felt myself being pulled to serve and to fight. So, when I was 14, I just kind of knew all right, I need to get to Iraq as fast as possible. Tried to join when I was 16. They wouldn't take me, wouldn't even talk to me basically at the recruiting station, but got my parents to sign me up when I was 17. And then, when I graduated, I shipped off to Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, shortly thereafter.
That's awesome. No, I love it. And again, I love the family history of it. And you do certainly hear that from a lot of folks that joined the military, that the family was a big part of it. Certainly for me,
Yeah.
my dad had been in the Marine Corps and obviously proudly chose the few to proud, which was great. And so what was your time like in the military? What kind of contract you signed? Do you know what you wanted to do when you got in? I mean, I know you wanted to go to Iraq, so I assume you thought you wanted to be a grunt from day one, or what was in your head when you kind of join the Corps?
Yeah, exactly. Infantry was the only thing I wanted to do. So I got an infantry contract. They tried to make me a cook. I think they offered you can be a cook and you can go 2 weeks earlier if you change your contract. And I was like, no way, man. But yeah, I joined, went to boot camp. Then I went to the School of Infantry out at Camp Pendleton after that for 3 months or whatever. And I wanted to be a rifleman, 0311, but they made me a machine gunner, 0331. So I was cool with it. It was kind of like a rifleman, but just carrying a saw or a M240 or something. So I did that. SOI was a lot of fun. And then I got assigned to 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines out there at Camp Pendleton. And I think we deployed to Fallujah maybe 8 to 12 months later. So did my first deployment in Iraq, 2007 timeframe. It wasn't super kinetic. I mean, there was like IEDs and couple ambushes type of thing, but this was after like Phantom Fury and then what followed. So it was kind of like a lot of the coin operations. If there was like an insurgency effort, our job was to basically like control it. And then I came home from that deployment. I made friends with a couple snipers on that deployment. They lived right next to us, and they kind of said, "Hey, you should think about trying out for the snipers." And that's what I did. As soon as we got back, they had cool guns, and you always see them in ghillie suits. And I thought, hey, I've seen that in movies. I could do that. So I tried out. They brought me in, and then I was a PIG in the platoon. PIG stands for Professionally Instructed Gunman. It's basically like you're basically like a support grunt for snipers until you go to sniper school and become a hog or a hunter of gunmen. So that's kind of the nickname for if you're a 0317 scout sniper. And I was a PIG for like 2 years. I carried a saw, and we did like all the reconnaissance and surveillance that a sniper team does, take pictures of things, lay in hide sites for days, And I finally got my shot at sniper school after our second deployment. Our second deployment was to Southeast Asia. We did the 31st MEU, Marine Expeditionary Unit, and we did like Thailand, Philippines, Australia. Super good learning experience, like hard, like complicated training missions, inserting from like Zodiacs and then rucking like 20 clicks for the insertion, and then doing RNS for days. So that was an eye-opening experience. I kind of was like, at the time, Iraq and Afghanistan were like really picking up, especially Afghanistan. And I had friends in Afghanistan, and I was like, dang it, I'm stuck on this ship, and like we're not fighting. What's going on, But anyways, got home from that deployment, went to sniper school. That was good. Went to the Scout Sniper Team Leaders course. That was good. And then we got slated to go to Afghanistan, like finally. And it was like, all right, this is like the culmination of all this hard work, the thousands of rounds of shooting and the hours sitting behind a scope. And they were like, okay, you guys are going to a town called like Golandi or something. I'd never heard of it. And I was like, where the heck is that? And they said, oh, it's like up north. Quick Google search returned like, there's nothing going on up there. And everybody was just like, damn it, like this is going to be a terrible deployment, boring. We'd heard all the stories about like Helmand province and how kinetic it was. And so we were like, dang, we're going to miss out on this. And actually a couple guys from our battalion like jumped ship before the deployment to go to another battalion that was going to go to Helmand. So it was like, shoot, I'm going to miss out again. But I think like a couple weeks or maybe like a month before we actually shipped out, they were like, hey, you guys are now deploying to Helmand to a town called Sangin.
Whew.
And we were like, Sangin? I've never heard of that. Like, what the heck? And so we kind of started Googling Sangin, Afghanistan. And it was like, oh, damn, this is hot. There was tons of stories about the British Royal Marines taking like heavy casualties. Taliban presence was stronger than anywhere else in the country. And so it was kind of like, oh boy, here we go. Like this actually might be something. And so, we shipped out. We kind of did a swap with, I think it was 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. And they were there and they confirmed everything. Like, this is more than you're expecting. Like, get ready. They didn't go into like Sangin proper and do like the clearance operations, but they went in and kind of held and occupied like the main route through town, and they still were faced with like serious resistance. And so we were kind of like, all right, Sangin, here we are. And then Sangin was very kinetic. It was a pretty rough deployment, and we were there for 7 months, and then learned a lot, experienced a lot of things about humanity and being in the military during time of conflict. but yeah, we came home from that deployment, and I was kind of nearing the end of my second enlistment, and so I was like kind of in this position, like, do I do another 4 years? Do I get out? I was kind of homesick at that point. The last deployment wasn't great, and I kind of came to the realization, like, all right, I'm still relatively young. I'm 26, 25 at the time. I think it might be time to get out, move home, be close to family again, live the American dream. So yeah, I got out, and that was the end of my first military experience. I'll pause there. I feel like I'm ranting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was look. I mean, I did 3 Iraqs and 3 Afghanistans, and I was in all those places you talked about. So
Yeah.
I get it. I think we were probably in Iraq at the same time in your first deployment. That was CO of First Recon
Okay.
during that time frame, and we
Yeah.
were Camp Rouge when things turned from being super kinetic to very quiet during that kind of time frame. So, and then did a lot of time in Afghanistan. I know how kinetic was out in Sengen. It was pretty rough out there for sure. So appreciate what you did, and appreciate needing some time just to reset and figure it out. And you're right. I mean, you hit a culmination point, right? It's a call of kind of like, are you gonna make it a career or not? I mean, that's the time frame, right? Am I doing right there? If you commit again, you're over 10 years, and you're halfway to retirement. It's like, okay, I get where that decision point, why you made it, and why you would do it at that point in time, because and certainly I'm sure you saw a lot that, like, man, I just need to take a knee and drink water and
Right.
kind of reset for a while, man, because mentally it's tough as much as it is physically. I think it's a lot harder mentally than people talk about. Just the deployment piece and cycle, and just needing some time to really get completely off the grid for a while and kind of just figure out life for a while, right? So yeah, so you
Yeah.
went back home, and then what were you thinking you were going to do? I mean, did you?
Yeah.
You have a plan at that point in time. Every Marine
Yeah.
that I talked to, as a CO, every Marine told me their plan was, I'm going to college.
Yep.
I'm going back home. I'm going to college. Now, none of them rarely executed that plan. They usually just go home, and they wanted their CO to sign the paperwork to let
Yep.
them off to get out of doing anything else. But what was your plan, or did you have a plan? I guess is maybe a better question.
Yeah, so I should probably backtrack. One of the main reasons why I decided to get out of the Marines was I met a girl on leave, and fell in love with her, and was like, man, this girl is never going to date me if I'm in California and she's in Nebraska. So that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. She's my wife now, but that big motivating factor, like, okay, I'm going to get out and I can spend some more time with this girl. But my plan was to go to college, get a degree, and in my mind that would equate to success and a lot of money. So I had a semblance of a plan. I get what you're saying, how guys just want their CO to sign off. I could have probably fell in that category a little bit too, but I got into the college I wanted, got a degree. I did all the things that you're supposed to do as a vet getting out, a young enlisted guy getting out. I used the GI Bill, and I worked, and I interned and networked, got a degree in economics. And it's funny because as graduation was approaching, I was like, all right, time to look for jobs. I'm going to work in finance, or I'm going to be working economics, whatever that means, So I started applying to like investment firms, banks, companies that had like analyst roles, statistics type stuff. I was kind of into that in college. And I just applied to like 100 of these jobs, and it was crazy because I didn't hear anything back, like nothing. And I was asking, friends at the time that were going through the same thing all over the country that I was in the Marines with, like, what's going on? I'm not hearing anything back. And the response is like, yeah, it's tough out there. Just keep apply in person if you can. But yeah, I didn't have any luck, and I like graduated college with no interviews, no opportunities on the horizon. And so I wasn't married at the time. I was still dating the same gal. She stuck with me. But it was kind of funny to me because I just was like, I must be like a crazy vet and nobody wants to hire me. And so, the stakes were low. I didn't have a bunch of mouths to feed or anything, but I was like, maybe it's because I have scout sniper on my resume. That's like a signal, like this dude might be a little crazy. Like, let's not call him back or hire him or anything. So I took that off my resume, and it didn't change anything. Obviously, it didn't. My trick didn't work, but I kind of came down to like a decision point where it was like, all right, I need to start making money. I guess I'll just go back to the military. So, I took some chemistry in college, and I met a lot of pre-med and like pre-physician assistant students, and medicine sounded cool to me. I kind of had my fill at that time of like the running and gunning stuff. And I was like, yeah, I could do like medicine. That would be cool. It'd be a great career, get to help people. I'm all in. So I joined the Army. The Marine Corps doesn't have medics; they have Navy corpsmen. So joined the Army. Long story short, became a medic. 68 whiskey. I was at Fort Bragg, and I got the opportunity to go to the Special Operations Combat Medic course out there, which is like a more in-depth medic training. So I did that, and it was great, and I fell in love with medicine just as I predicted. I mean, fascinating field. It was challenging. You got to help people and stuff. I loved that feeling. So I kind of gravitated towards the clinical side of things instead of like the field medic stuff. I worked a lot in clinics. I helped like patients that were coming in with all kinds of sicknesses and ailments and injuries. Worked at the hospital, paramedic rotations. I got the opportunity to go down to Florida and do a lot of training down there at Tampa General. And so that was like what I wanted to do from that point forward. Like I could tell that was my calling in life. And the military has a physician assistant program, and I was like, man, that's perfect for me. I'll fast track to captain once I graduate. Beautiful. And so I was applying to this program, and I was like a shoo-in. I did all the science prerequisites, and I have the SOCM background, so it knocked out a bunch of other classes I would have had to have done otherwise. But to get into this program, you have to take a medical physical, just like a check in the box to make sure you're fit for duty. And they found a random, super unexpected medical condition. It's like a cranial cyst, a big cyst in my brain. And they're like, oh, you can't be in the military anymore. And so they were like, you are getting medically separated ASAP. You can't jump anymore. You can't deploy. And so I was like, oh, this is a wrench in my plans. So I had some good advice from a friend back home. He said, learn how to code as fast as possible. So I went on YouTube and consumed everything I could about, Python, data science, SQL, and did a bunch of online training boot camps for coding and programming. And that's pretty much it.
That is quite the pivot. I mean, to go from, sniper, hit kind of a wall there, college, finance, thought I was going to be in the suit working and, I don't know, exactly. Spreadsheets at, Lehman Brothers or something, hit a wall there, re-enlist, go back to be a medic, do that, think you're going to go to be a physician's assistant and be, an officer in the Army. Yep. Total wall there because of a medical issue, and then to pivot again into coding and do it yourself is pretty impressive. I mean, and obviously, I can't wait to hear, how it got you to where you are now. But I would love to. I mean, what's your take on how your time in the military has allowed you to be so resilient? I mean, I think you've obviously learned something. But I mean, I like to say I attribute to the Marine Corps and the grit you have, but clearly that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, because a lot of people, I talk to a lot of folks that are looking for jobs, and they often get frustrated and just like can quit. I mean, a lot of people just don't have that drive or determination. And what you do that you attribute, has enabled you to push through all those different roadblocks that you've come up against, in your career.
Yeah, I'd say my upbringing, just good parents, always there, taught us how to, like, don't give up, your core fundamental, like, life lessons, big part of that. I would attribute it a lot to being a young Marine enlisted guy, where you don't have all the cool toys that exist, but you don't have them at your disposal, and you're still required to carry on and pull off whatever the mission is. So you learn that at a pretty young age in the Marine Corps. You're always training and not ideal conditions, weather or sleep, deprivation type of stuff. And yeah, it's like a conditioned, I think it's kind of a conditioned characteristic. I definitely wasn't born with any kind of Herculean ability to like figure stuff out, but I think I had training in the Marine Corps to just like stick it out, suck it up, figure out a way to embrace any kind of curveball that life throws at you.
No, it's definitely. I mean, look, you get taught to embrace the suck, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you do, and you embrace the suck all the time in the military. And again, I think there's something about doing more with less, right? That's what we pride ourselves on. I think in the Marine Corps in particular is,
Mm-hmm.
we're asked to do hard things with very limited resources, and you figure it out. Now that skill set, as much as it can be, you can bitch about it when you're in the military, can translate and does translate well to the civilian sector, right? Because I think at the end of the day, what it is, it's problem solving, right? It's problem solving with limited resources. And if you can solve problems, if you can look at a problem differently and figure out how to get from A to B with limited resources, that's a pretty awesome thing to be able to do, especially if you're trying to do something on your own in a scrappy kind of way, which you obviously have been doing over the last several years. And I'd love to hear how what the coding turned into.
Yeah.
Obviously, self-taught is pretty cool in its own right. I mean, but what was your, I mean, obviously a friend kind of suggested it for you, very good suggestion, but
Yeah.
what did you think you would do with that? And what did you what was reality of what it ended up turning into?
That is a great question. So, I had very little background in coding. I think we had to do a little bit of R, which is a programming language for like statistical analysis and stuff, when I was getting an economics degree. But other than that, I had very little knowledge of software or tech or anything. The buddy that told me to learn how to code, he was a Marine with me as well. He fought in Sangan too, but his previous life, he was a software engineer. So great advice, kind of mentored me and held my hand along the way, especially in the early days of me trying to navigate like what the heck is Python or whatever. So yeah, I did a lot of YouTube. I bought a couple books and just worked through them, simple projects. Like I think my first project was create a game in a language called C#. And I just worked through this textbook, and it was like coding for dummies, I did a lot of those. And, I thought software meant if you can write code, you'll make $250,000 a year. I didn't really understand that there's like entry level and different tiers, and you have senior and staff engineers and all that stuff. So, I got to a point before the Army like formally separated me. I got to the point where I was pretty good, and I could do a lot of entry level stuff like data analyst. I could do some basic machine learning, algorithms. So I started applying to like jobs that I thought I was suited for, and it was kind of the same thing. Like I didn't hear anything back. It was weird. I was like, okay, same thing again, I guess. But the DoD has this cool thing called the Skill Bridge program, and it's like an internship for gals that are getting out. And I interviewed for an internship at a tech startup back home in Omaha, the Omaha area, and they did cybersecurity for long haul trucking. And so what they would do is use machine learning algorithms to predict any kind of network intrusion attempt onto a vehicle's ECU system. So like, trucks have tons of little tiny computers called ECUs, and a bad actor can, in theory, get into that system via Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or a hard connection. And our hardware and our software would detect any kind of malicious activity that wasn't recognized as being native to the vehicle. So, I did that internship for a couple months. I really liked the job. I enjoyed the team, and I thought the work was challenging and exciting. And it was a startup, so there was definitely some upside there for me. And they ended up hiring me as a machine learning engineer, and so now I finally had a cool job that I liked. And I it's funny because startups are so crazy. You wear so many different hats, like no matter what your job title is. Like I'd be writing code or troubleshooting some algorithm one day, and then the next day I'd be soldering wires together to create some kind of new harness for a semi truck or whatever. But I really enjoyed that startup life. I kind of got bit by the startup bug, back then. And that company was a startup, and unfortunately, like a lot of startups, they kind of started running out of money, and so they started to have to let people go, and they didn't let me go, but I could see the writing on the wall that it was coming. And luckily through my personal network, a friend of mine reached out and said, "Hey, I know a guy that's looking for a data scientist. Are you interested?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And did a couple interviews with them, and they hired me as kind of like a data scientist utility employee, and that was great. I love that company. Cool AI startup that does a lot of. We did consulting in the early days, so a company would come to us and they'd have a problem, and in their mind, the solution would be to sprinkle some AI on it, and so we would build like a custom solution using AI and apply it to their problem. And that was fun for a while. And kind of I'd say like a year to 2 years ago I started getting this phone call, and I'd keep getting the same phone call from old friends of mine that were retiring from the Marines or getting out of the military, and they would say, "Hey, how did you get a job? I keep applying to all these jobs and I don't hear anything back." And I was like, "Dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. What is that?" you know so this kind of led me to do some deep research and try to figure out like what the heck's going on. It's 2025. Why does this happen? People apply to a bunch of jobs and don't get anything back. So I started researching, and my research kind of led to me like interviewing employers and job seekers just to try to figure it out. It's kind of like a passion project, I guess. And then I was like, hey, I think there's a market opportunity here. I'm going to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring. And that's what led me to found Higher Calling.
That is awesome. And again, I mean, and you lump together a lot of things there, from coding to machine learning to AI, all of which are different. I mean, did you learn all of those? I mean, self-taught basically by kind of, because they're not all the same. I mean, they're people I think can confuse them as being the same, but it's not the same really. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, 'cause I'm not the tech guy here, but did you used to be just self-teach yourself all of this as you were going through these different companies, especially in startup land? I guess you kind of had to, like, I mean, to your point, just figure it out. You're only all hands on deck. You're soldering one day, you're coding one day, you're sprinkling AI another day. I mean, it sounds easy. You make it sound easy, but there's more to it than just that. I mean, how'd you do? Again, is this all basically self-taught stuff that through the years?
Yeah, so I ended up kind of formalizing my education, because that self-taught piece is hard for me to show like future employers, like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm self-taught. A lot of times they want to see some kind of credential behind it.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
early days self-taught, used online boot camps and stuff and get through them. And then like at the startup I was working at, I had a lot of great mentorship from the CEO all the way down to my direct supervisor. Everybody was always helping me a lot. I got a master's degree in data science,
Nice.
as kind of that thing to solidify the credential, and
Yeah.
learned a lot there. That was an interesting experience, but just like you said, kind of figure it out. A lot of struggles. If you ever written code, it can be just a nightmare, bashing your head against the wall, like trying to get it to work or whatever. So
Well, and again, and then I'd love to see it now. Obviously, you made the call, the pivot off on your own based on basically feedback of many veterans having a similar experience to you of applying into the black hole and not hearing back, which is, I hear that all the time as
Yeah.
well. And again, there's a lot of, that's a conversation with our day, but what, just talk about more about what you created, what you built,
Okay.
and what it does, and what veterans should be listening to that maybe are having the same frustration from doing that these days. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're applying to a bunch of jobs and you're not hearing anything back, you're not alone. It's a very pervasive phenomenon. I think there's a perception of ghost jobs, and there's the reality of ghost jobs. It's easy for people that are going through this tough time in life trying to find a new role, and they're not hearing anything back. It's easy for them to just assume this is all a scam. I don't think that's the case, across the board. There's I think like a continuum or like a spectrum. You have kind of on the bad or the malicious side of the spectrum, you have like, a lot of companies that try to be, clever and post a lot of jobs online to signal growth to their shareholders or to, VCs or whatever, say they're raising money. That's kind of a well-known tactic. That's well documented. That you have stuff like that, or companies, they want to placate their existing workforce and say, hey, we know you're overworked, but help's on the way. Just buckle down. You can see here on Indeed, we're hiring 6 engineers to come help you, or whatever. And then, I think on the more benign side of the spectrum is, employers, they post jobs, they make a hire, and then they forget to take them down. It's very easily overlooked. HR teams are overloaded as it is, so pretty common and reasonable event to have happen. The way that higher calling kind of fits into the equation is, we're trying to build something that is a transparency mechanism for the job seekers and the employers. So at first glance, the problem looks like it's one-sided. It looks like only job seekers are harmed by, ghost jobs or the accusation of ghost jobs. They apply to a bunch of jobs and they don't hear anything back. But the reality is employers, they're damaged greatly by being accused of posting ghost jobs. It kills their reputation. It just takes a couple minutes of cruising on Reddit or LinkedIn. You can find articles about ghost jobs, and it's kind of a dark place online. You can read some sad stories about people and they accuse companies. So, higher calling's mission is to kind of be the mechanism in the middle that shows what companies are hiring with intent, what companies are really engaging with their applicants. And the way we do that is by linking donations to job applications. So if you are a job seeker and you apply to a job, if the employer opts in to our services, the job seeker gets the chance to select a nonprofit that they want to support. And then when the employer receives that application, they have the option to make a small but meaningful donation on behalf of that job seeker. And then the real magic behind what we do is we capture that donation and we broadcast it on the job listing for other job seekers to see. So it'll say, hey, last engagement from this company was 7 minutes ago. If you're a job seeker cruising Indeed for hours and you see the same lifeless job posts, and then you see one that's like, hey, higher calling, I've heard of that. This company is engaging with their applicants. I might spend an hour to write a really good targeted resume and a heartfelt cover letter. And, in the short term, I'm incentivized to do that because maybe my church or my favorite charity will get, $20 from this employer.
That's pretty sweet. I love, I having been in this space for a long time, in the hiring space, and I saw it. I think, your point is well made about the ghost jobs and how that happens. And being at Amazon, I can tell you, we had thousands of openings.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't all taken down in a timely manner because a lot of times we wouldn't close the job application until someone was hired,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And up until that point, it could be a month before someone got hired, but we get 10,000 applicants.
Right.
So it wasn't like we were trying to be malicious. It was like, well, it's not filled yet because we haven't actually the interview process alone takes a certain period of time, but people see it there and they're like, well, I applied, I didn't hear back. So I get the frustration. I do,
Yeah.
especially with it. But also there is from a company side, again, when you get 10,000 applicants for one job, you can't reply to them all either, So there's two sides of the coin on that, right? So
Definitely.
I don't think there are bad actors out there. Now, I agree with that 100%. There are
Mhm.
people that are doing it maliciously. I think the majority of it is more of the process can be so slow, especially for bigger companies that get a high volume of
You
applicants.
got it.
It looks like a problem, and then people get angry about it. And like, I get it. I mean, I lived it
Yeah.
for 7 years. So it's not malicious. It's just we can't close it because we haven't filled it yet. When we fill it, we're happy. We want to fill it faster than anybody. I promise you. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah, I think you're
yeah,
exactly right. I would say the majority of, the ghost job perception or accusations, it's companies that are acting in good faith, but it's very difficult for them to distill down the candidates that they want to advance in their pipeline.
right.
They can't just close a job listing. That's not how hiring recruiting works.
Yep.
Um, an interesting an interesting piece for the job seekers that are applying to jobs that kind of fits in here is, if you're familiar with like how Indeed or Glassdoor or LinkedIn or whatever, it will say on the job listing how many candidates have applied.
Hmm.
Typically, it will say like over 100 applicants have clicked apply, and what that really means is, like you were saying, 10,000 have applied.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, job seekers see that, and they know it's capped at 100 to make it not totally dissuasive to apply, but they
Yeah.
they still know, and they say, you know, I'm 5,000 in line. I'm not going to waste my time applying. So they kind of self-select based on that old-fashioned metric of how many people have applied. And then on the flip side, that metric harms employers who it might be a company you haven't heard of before, and you can see that the listing is 2 months old, but only two people have applied.
Yeah.
And so job seekers see that and they're like, what the heck? Does this company suck? Is the
Yeah.
salary too low? Is this a scam? What's going on here? So that's one of the reasons, higher calling, we're trying to get rid of that old dinosaur metric of how many people have applied, because it hurts the employers trying to get the number of applicants that they really want.
No, I think that's a great point and a much needed service. And what would you? Well, I guess how has the process gone for you as a founder? It's
Mhm.
never easy to get these things going. I talk to a lot of guys that have started their own business on the podcast. What was and did you have to raise money to get this going? Are you bootstrapped yourself? What's been
Yeah.
the process to get funded, and then how's that all kind of been moving forward for you? Yeah, let's talk about that first. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So a lot of raising money, still raising money, looking to close as soon as possible our pre-seed round. We're very close. We have the architecture laid out. We have, the team is in place, ready to execute. What's interesting is nonprofits are a big part of this equation. So we've been talking to a lot of nonprofits, and we're onboarding them into our what we call the early partner network. Basically, we vet them, we talk to them, we try to learn, what are they looking for, what metrics are important to them, and so we onboard these cool nonprofits, and we're sharing their message. They're sharing our message. At this stage, it's a lot of sales. We have to sell the idea to investors. We have to sell it to platforms to host our service. We have to sell it to employers, obviously, because employers are our customers. They get the benefit of higher calling services, but they're the ones paying. And then in turn, we are trying to sell it to job seekers too. Hey, we are the only transparency mechanism out there. Like, we're a signal that gives job listings a heartbeat, and we have to kind of validate ourselves to the job seeker, because the job seekers are our demand lever. If we can crank that up, then we'll get more eyes on us. We'll in turn kind of grow the trust that employers and nonprofits have with us. So I don't even know if I answered your question, Beau, but a lot of sales at this point.
Yeah, no, that is what I hear the most is that, it's 100 no's to get one yes in the funding cycle. And you're obviously in that right now and
Yeah.
facing what every founder goes through,
Yeah.
I think. But is your platform live now? You're up and running and going, or where are you at in the process? And I guess really
Mhm.
what for veterans or companies that would be interested in this, what do we want to get out there? That's really for you. What do we want to
Yeah.
tell the audience
Yeah,
today?
thanks,
Yeah.
Beau. We're not live yet. We're still working on the back end. It's a lot of troubleshooting, and we're integration focused with platforms like Indeed, applicant tracking systems and stuff. The plan right now, and it's software, so anything can happen. There's always hiccups developing something like this, but early Q1 of 2026 is when we're going to be live as of right now. So we're pre-product, pre-revenue. I call it we're in the idea plus stage.
Got it. Got it. I guess the question I'd love to ask folks that are founders is like, what would you have done differently if you had to back up, a year ago
Oh,
when
that's
you
a good
had the
question.
idea from a year to now? Like, what would you, or what did you learn that you didn't realize would be so hard, or what's been the lessons learned you've had through the process, and you can share with others that may want to,
Sure.
start their own thing. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're able to bootstrap something, fund it yourself, uh, that's great. If you can't, I would, yeah, really focus on the process of raising money from investors. That has been quite an experience for me. Uh, I don't have any experience in entrepreneurship at all. This is my first attempt, and so talking with investors, trying to get in touch with VCs. They don't just respond to emails or cold LinkedIn messages. It doesn't work like that. You got to really get creative in how you reach them. Uh, so I would really focus on developing your inner circle of contacts. Try to get anybody that you know to open doors, because that's how I've gotten VC investment. It's the only way that I've experienced to even talk to institutional investors. And if you do need that money, then that's a pretty important piece of it.
And that is a huge piece of it, and that's the same. It's a drum beat that you hear the most from folks. The hardest part is getting it again, because you are talking, to 100 people to get one yes. A lot of times, it's hard to get the meetings in the first place. And then when you get the meetings, it's harder to close the deal.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
that is the theme you hear a lot in this space. But good on you, certainly, for making that jump. And again, I love your journey from enlisted scout sniper with a guy named Wilmes as a
yeah.
scout sniper, which I think is somehow appropriate.
That's funny. It's the worst name a sniper could have. Will miss. And I've always known. I knew even before I became a sniper. I knew that my name isn't great for this role. Luckily, nobody else figured it out until, like, I don't know, like the second to last day of qualification in sniper school.
Yeah.
We're shooting unknown distance targets, and before you shoot, they yell out your name, and so that's how you know it's your turn. You've got, like, I don't know, 5 seconds to engage your target once they yell out your name. And they yelled out my name, Wilmes, and then they were like, "Everybody, get off the gun, get off the line." And they were like, "Wilmes, come here." And they were like, "Is your name Wilmes or Wilmes?" And I was like, "It's pronounced Wilmes." And I don't know. They thought it was so funny. They had me doing push-ups like the rest of the day because of it, because they never figured it out. But yeah,
That is pretty good. That is pretty good. Well, again, I love your attitude. I love the fact that you have persevered through so many closed doors to get to this point. And I have no doubt that you will continue to do that and continue to thrive and be successful as you do something that is, I think, much needed. And again, as a guy that's been in the veteran hiring space, you hear these same complaints a lot. So again, if you can provide that service, and it really is a service for those folks that are looking for jobs and for the companies that are interested in it. It'd be wonderful to see that come to fruition. So I hope this podcast helps a little bit in getting the word out there about what you're doing. And I can't wait for it to go live, hopefully in Q1. And any last closing words before we wrap things up?
I don't think I do. I appreciate you having me on, Beau. It's great catching up. It's been a couple weeks since I last saw you.
Yeah, no, it was great meeting you. And I loved your story and wanted to get you on the program to share your story, and excited to see what comes ahead, Jake. So good luck to you, and hope to see you soon out here, man.
Thanks, Beau. Take care.